Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. It's AskPat13, and today we're going to be doing some tier lists and ranking the teams at Worlds. Now obviously a lot of these teams are already eliminated, but that's alright. Today we're just ranking skill. So we're looking at all these 24 teams and we're going to rank them into categories based on skill. Now as you can see, I think I have a pretty clear list here. All these teams are the best in the world. We got Vitality, K-Corp, Gen.G, BDS, all of them, all the way down to Falcons, Moist, Complexity, Liquid, G2. They're all the best in the world. Space Station's just there a little bit off, and then everybody else just needs more time, I think. That's all for the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Then don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're just kidding. I'm just playing with you. We're in the midst of making this tier list video live, so if you want to be involved in the making of videos like this, don't forget to check out my community tab where I make posts about when I go live, and just check the channel for when I go live. I'm going to be live streaming the World Championship watch party tomorrow. If you're seeing this video, then the very next day or the day you're seeing this video, I'm going to be live streaming the World Championship watch party both days. Don't forget to check it out. Chat's in the corner. It's an involved chat. Everybody's having a good time, so hope you enjoyed the video, and with that, we're going to get into the real tier list right now. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start with the teams that need more time. I didn't want this to be a negative bottom ranking because it's not really negative. These teams, they're just newer to the scene, and they just need some more time to develop. So I think first off, we're going to talk about Valiant. I think Valiant showed a lot of promise at Worlds. They took a game off Power, which is quite good looking, and I just feel like they need more time. It's kind of unfortunate they live so far away that they don't get great scrims with other parts of the world like some other regions can. But just give them some more time to develop. Now that they've been to Worlds, I think they'll grow and be better players next season. Next up is Limitless. It's a similar story. They've had one more season to develop. All these players were at Worlds last year, but they still need some more time. Additionally, I am going to throw Gladiators in here, but I think it's in part because they had a roster move. So I think the fact that they're removing someone and they announced it before Worlds impacted their play. So we'll see how they do next season when they're a little more solid on their roster. Now we're going to go straight up to the next tier of skill, and first up in this tier is Pioneers. I think that they barely scrape in here, if I'm going to be honest. They look pretty poor, but they have some saving graces that I do think they're above the needing more time tier. And a lot of people are going to see alright and think, oh, these teams are not alright. But in the grand scheme of the world of Rocket League, every team at Worlds here that's in this tier or above is alright. They are good teams. They are good teams. They deserve to be at the World Championship. And I feel it's accurate to talk about Pioneers being, alright at Worlds. Next up, let's talk about Elevate. I think Elevate looked great. In fact, better than I expected. I predicted it, but they actually beat G1. They actually beat Pioneers. They deserve to be in this tier. They're just there. They're there, and they deserve to be here. And they had a chance at making it through to the next level. But there's still some concerns that you can see with their gameplay, and I think they'll slowly get ironed out as Realize improves as an individual and his squad with Kami and Virtuoso starts to play better together. So we'll see how they develop. I definitely could see a little more development in their future. If I had to put another team in this tier, it would definitely be Power. Perhaps right about the level of Elevate. I'll put them a little bit above. I think this team is very talented, but there is an odd man out. I don't want to say it like this, but it's based on stats and just eye test. Torsos looked a little weak this championship, so we'll see what they do next season. I have heard rumors that Fever is going to stay with Torsos. I don't know how that will go. I think Amphis is their strongest player, but we'll see what Power do next season. And they're all good players. They all are solid, even if Torsos did look a bit weak. And I think that they'll continue to develop. But yeah, they were all right. So the next team that I would put in the all-right tier is gotta be G1. I think G1 looked better than I expected, and actually I think a lot of people thought they looked poor because they started off quite poor with 2 losses in a row in Wildcard, but they pulled it back. They won 2 matches, especially notably against Oxygen, and it kind of pulled it around. It pulled it back from the brink, and they ended up just being an all-right team. A lot of kind of mess around the fact that they almost made a roster change, but then had to walk it back, so I think despite Oli looking like the strongest player on the team, they still had some chemistry issues. So all these players are good, especially Atomic and Oli, but we'll have to see what they do next season because they were just alright this time around. And right in the same vein is Oxygen. They actually beat Oxygen, G1 did, but I'm going to put Oxygen a tad higher in the same tier just because the players are also individually talented that it still shocks me that they couldn't put it together and beat G1. I think you got two really top tier players in Archie and Joreas, but there seems to be persistent problems with perhaps playing time, perhaps mentality during the matches. Who can say? But they both seem to struggle a lot in these LAN environments. And then the last team I'm going to put in alright. This might be a surprise to some viewers, but after their performance today, I don't think you could put FaZe anywhere else. They haven't looked good. It's a blunt way to say it, and I know they took a couple games off Moist, but FaZe have not looked good. And I think a large chunk can be put to the fact that there's all this bad publicity, all these rumors swirling around. You know, that they kicked their coach right before Worlds. Although it wasn't right before Worlds, it was a few weeks before it was public. But all to say, they kicked their coach. Some of their players are on low hours. There's a lot of turmoil. And for all that, in addition to what we saw on the field, I don't think I can put them as a good team. I don't think they were good this Worlds. They were just all right. They weren't bad. I mean, I think if they'd been in wildcard, there's a decent chance they make it out. But they weren't good, so can't put them much higher. In the next tier, we're going to talk about the teams that are good. And there were a lot of good teams at Worlds. I was actually happily surprised, I think, how many solid contenders we have at Worlds this year. This is quite the list. And as you look, I mean, all these teams I actually genuinely feel are good or great or better. So a lot of good teams here. Let's start talking about some of the teams near the bottom. I think first up, I'm going to talk about Secret. And this might be a shocker for some people, perhaps not. They've had really strong parts of the season, and they've had really poor parts of the season. Secret had a really good fall split where they got top 4, which was not a fluke. They played very well and earned that top 4 semifinal finish at the fall major, but they've had a pretty big drop-off since then. And getting top 16 at Worlds, although it's disappointing for them, I think to me it cements that they were a good team this season, and a good team now in skill. Another team I'd put in this exact same category is Ninjas in Pajamas. They've had moments where they look very strong, like a great team. They have other moments where they just look like an alright team. But in the whole, they definitely settle on good. It's a good squad. They've had some great matches, like I said. They've also had their weak moments. I think they put up a really good fight today against Complexity. And I think Astramic is really passionate about the game. You love to see it. And it's one of the reasons I think this squad will continue to see them around the top of the RLCS. Is that fact that Astramic has bounced back with so many different teammates after he loses his most talented teammates along the way. So, a lot of love to Ninjas in Pajamas there. And moving right along this category, I don't want to put them all in the same category, but I think it's likely that we're going to see Crew also here. Now, on the one hand, it's kind of concerning that none of the South American teams are great right now, but at the other time, if you have 3 teams that are good, I think it's a fair argument to give them another major slot, especially if there's an expansion. I think this region is really proven that they're in the top 4. I think everyone's kind of knows it at this point. It's clearly, everyone knows Europe, North America, but right behind them are Middle East and South America. And South America has proven it here with 3 good teams. Cruz is just a good squad. I think they have the best chance out of these 3 because they're still alive to improve on that rating. But for now, I think I just have them in the good category. Another team that's good is Twisted Minds. And I think I'll put them right around here in the midst of the South American teams. They have really, I think, outperformed how I thought they would do at Worlds. They really showed why they belonged in that top 16 conversation. They made, it to groups, and it was deserved making it into groups. And they've really proven why they belong. Again, a lot of solid matches. They beat some European teams along the way, some North American, I believe. Let's check their wildcard run. Because although they lost 2 matches in groups, they obviously won their 3 matches in wildcard. And I do believe it was at least Moist. Let's look it back. Yep, they beat Moist along the way. So, and Pioneers in Power. So, strong from them. A little weaker than Crew in part because they did lose to Crew. But a strong performance. A strong performance from Twisted Minds to be good, at this World Championship. And then perhaps the last team. Yeah, the last team I'll put here in good. This might be controversial. The last team I'm going to put in good is Moist. Now, definitely a bit controversial, but they're definitely the stronger of the teams in good. But they didn't look great. I just haven't seen greatness from them yet. I think the squad is really struggling in certain moments to communicate well. And I think Joyo, although he's a standout, his teammates haven't been as consistent. And if they're gonna be great, because they're still alive, they play G2 tomorrow when I'm filming this, they're really gonna need to just step up that communication game with the 3 of them. And especially, you know, they had a kind of shaky wildcard run to get here. So that's where I put Moist in the good category. And again, all these teams are good, so this isn't an insult, although it may seem like it. I just think that there was the most good teams we've ever seen at an RLCS LAN this time around. And so now I'm going to start talking about some of the great teams at this tournament. And I think that there are quite a few great teams. Again, this is one of the best, I believe it, I truly believe it's one of the best World Championships we've had. And I think a lot of teams are playing better than I expected. So despite the fact that I have, how many is this? 10. This is truly a top 10, so they all can't make playoffs. I think all these teams are great. And let's talk. I think there are a few weaker teams. So first up, we'll talk about Space Station, a great team. And I think their series against Vitality really showcases why they are so great. But they're at a crux point here, and I think that once they make playoffs, it's going to be challenging to see them go any further, and they still have a risk of not making playoffs. Right along that same coin is Rule 1. I think, in fact, I favor Space Station over them a tad right now, but I do think they're quite good, and they've been great, I should say, great this event. And I think what's going to put them from great to elite is if they can put back their spring major form. I think they have not looked good as good as spring, and if some players, especially Kaliers, who has not been playing well, can step it up, then I think we could easily see them jump a tier. A lot of these teams in great have the ability to be even better, but we've got to see some growth as they progress. Similarly, I'm gonna put Falcons, I think, here. Falcons are quite strong. In fact, they're looking the best they have all tournament in their recent series against Secret. And for them, it's going to be like the same thing as Rule 1, but they're going to have to dig deep because the last time they were truly elite was when they made the grand finals in the spring major of last year. And I think if they pull out that type of LAN level again, they could easily be elite or even, you know, the best in the world. But we haven't seen that in a while. Even yesterday, they weren't quite as good as they were back then. So they have it in them, but we have to see them really dig deep because they're going to potentially face Vitality in playoffs. So they've really got to show up right away in playoffs tomorrow, on the day I'm recording this. And next up, it's just going to talk about G2. G2 is not infinitely better than Falcons. They're pretty equal, I think, in terms of being the greatness they've showed so far. I did not expect them to play this well. This was probably my worst mistake in terms of rating teams, just because I didn't think they'd make it out of wildcard, and yet they're proving me wrong every step of the way. I think their win against Row 1 is really telling, as well as their sweep of Complexity. Sweeping Complexity is a great showing, and I'm going to be really interested to see how far they can take it. Now, the next up, it's a tough one, but I do think I'm going to have to leave Complexity down here in Great. I think they can be elite, and of all the teams in Great, they have the easiest ability to be elite. But I don't see it. I don't see it in the way they were playing against teams like G2. I don't see it in the way even, you know, that they played against Liquid. I think that it's a Game 7, an incredibly close series, but they didn't have the ice in a really important moment. And I think that's the difference between elite teams and great teams. And they've been elite in the past, and they probably will be elite again, but for now, I'm going to leave Complexity down here. Moving right along, I'm also going to leave them in great is Gen.G. I think Gen.G have the easiest road to be elite of all these teams in North America. I think that all it takes is a really good playoffs, and they're already in playoffs. So they're right there, but I still want to see them come back into that fall major form where they won the fall major. They're almost there. Nolly is peaking, but I want to see apparently Jack peak right alongside Nolly. I think Chronic's playing solid, and Nolly is peaking. I want to see apparently Jack right up there with them. They could easily get back into elite. So next up, let's talk about these elite teams. There's 4 elite teams. We're going to throw them all in here, and then we're going to talk about which team is probably the best in the world. But we got these elite teams. First up, Karmine Corp. Karmine Corp's incredible. I think that it really just goes to show you how being so good consistently over the season, how difficult it is that perhaps Karmine Corp is the only team to have done it. Maybe the next team I'll talk about, Liquid's in a similar story, but Karmine Corp have been consistent all season long, and they won the Winter Major. So they've done it all. Now they're here at Worlds, and they want to prove themselves against some new squads like Vitality. They want to prove that they have it. They have what it takes to win a World Championship. I don't think they're the best in the world, but I definitely think they're elite. And a similar story for Liquid. I think Karmine Corp's a little bit better of a story, but I think Liquid have also been solid all season long. They've won some regionals, they've gone deep, made the top 4 at the Winter Major. I think that They're in a prime spot to make another top 4, and that's why I have them here elite, but they probably are the weaker of these elite teams. Next up, let's talk BDS. I think BDS have shown pretty much everything in this one split, although it was just one split. So the last 2 teams, I should mention the same thing for Vitality, they made a roster move. So it's kind of not so fair because they didn't have a whole season to potentially regress like some of these other teams did, but at the same time, they're looking so good right now that there's nothing else I can do but say they're elite. I think BDS, they're the reigning world champions. They have Rai, they added Rai as a major champion himself, and I really think that they belong right in this league category, and they've proven it with their performance in the spring split in Europe, and especially at this Boston Major. Which brings me to Vitality. Of course, Vitality, this is a boring thing to say, but you know, they're the best team in the world right now, and I think that's going to continue. They easily could get knocked off the pedestal. We have so many great teams at this World Championship, so many great teams, but even the great teams are going to struggle against Vitality, and I think it's going to take some peaking by these other teams. They're going to have to play the best they've ever played, and Vitality might even have to have an officers, because potentially playing the best you've ever played might not be enough. This team is really clicking on all cylinders, and some series they look like they're playing a different level of Rocket League. I think, for example, Moist was a sweep, and although some of these games were close 1-goal games, they really looked like they were on a different level at moments against Moist and against these other top squads, these other great squads. So I would favor Vitality here, and I think that's a fair thing to say. Let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, a lot of these teams could be swapped around, so let me know if you think I'm crazy, if you think there's a team I misjudged in the comments. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Subscribing is the #1 way to help me grow, and I really appreciate all the support. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.